I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to talk with Sarah. Sarah, before we got on, I was going to make sure I had the pronunciation of your name right, but with these computer things I had going on, please say your name for me.
Yeah, Sarah Santacroce.
Santa
Santa
Croce.
Croce.
Santa
Yes.
Croce, like Jim Croce, the end, like the
Exactly.
finger.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking that was right. So thank you, Sarah. And we're going to be talking about Sarah's article in the November-December issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Sarah, thank you for being with me today. I really appreciate you and your writing and your whole philosophy about business marketing. So what do
Thank
you
you for
want
having
viewers to
me.
know about you?
Yeah, where do I start? It's that big
Exactly.
question, right? And I used to go into the whole career thing. And ever since I've had my kind of breakdown that led to a breakthrough and kind of really got me into my whole and holistic being, I start with the hippie turned business coach story because that's the my title on LinkedIn, right? And people always ask, so what's the hippie story? So I grew up in a small hippie community. Back then, my parents didn't call it a hippie community, but now looking back, to me, it was
It was
definitely
an
a hippie
intentional
community.
community, right? I think
Yeah,
it's hard to do
exactly.
sometimes.
Yeah,
And where
it was
was that?
basically it was in Switzerland in the 80s, and it was basically my parents bought an apartment building because over here in Europe we often live in apartments, right? And so they bought an apartment building with six apartments and five other families, and then we co-lived in that building. We each had our own apartments, but then we spent a lot of time together in each other's places or in the garden or and so it was really a different kind of upbringing that for me back then was just like, well, this is normal. And yet once I went to school, I started to notice, oh, this is not normal to people, that you just go into each other's houses without calling first and things like that. So yeah, it was really this for me, this community upbringing that gave me all of these values that I now bring into my work. And so that was really the homecoming for me to actually, stand behind that story and put it into a business context, which before I was hiding it away. It's like, oh, this is embarrassing. I can't bring that into business, right? But it's so
Mhm.
much part of me that now that I'm finally sharing it, it feels like, oh, I can just be myself and be the whole person that I am.
Yeah, I love that story so much. I'm a little bit of a hippie girl myself, having, come of age in the early 70s. And I always like to say that I was a little bit of a hippie girl whose parents were paying for her college. It's
Right.
like,
I love
so,
that.
I had some limits there on it, but I really appreciate that philosophy. And it's interesting because, when I started my On Purpose Women community, which I was called On Purpose Networking for Women 25 years ago, I didn't use words like heart or conscious networking, but I knew that I wanted to do this sort of what I called a feminine model of networking, because that old model of passing out business cards to anyone who was breathing, just felt so yucky to me. And when you talk about marketing, it's the same kind of thing, like just forcing ourselves on people, just not being intentional and not being conscious about it. So you started this thing called Humane Marketing. Say a few words about that, if you will, before we talk about your article.
Yeah. So it really kind of came together with my homecoming to myself and this realization that I was at this crossroad where I was 15 years into business and yet feeling completely exhausted
Mhm.
with the state of business and what I myself was kind of like, I was a marketer. I was taught by other marketers how to do marketing, how to sell online. And yet I just like every year I felt a little bit more out of integrity. It didn't feel in alignment to whom I was. And so that's when I had this kind of epiphany and thought, well, we need a movement a movement that brings more empathy and kindness to business and marketing. And so that's how this all came together. And then I needed a word for it. And first it was called gentle marketing.
Mm.
And then I came across a probably not so gentle marketer who kind of had a trademark going. And 2 weeks after I published my book, she's like, well, you can't use that word. It's fine. And so I had to find another word. And so when I thought about, well, what is it really that I'm, that the message I'm wanting to spread? Yes, it's gentle. Yes, it's compassionate and kind. But it's also, for me, it's a lot about this feeling of Ubuntu, meaning I am because you are, and we're all humanity together. And so that's why the word humane, that's really what this expresses for me. It's like, it's not about me being better than you or me pushing you to, buy my stuff. It's about finding win-win solutions for both of us, and therefore making us better and helping our businesses, but also making the world a better place. So that's how humane marketing came to be.
Well, I'm kind of glad that she did that because
Yeah,
humane is such a broader, more all-encompassing word, isn't it? It's a more
it
powerful
is.
word.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
people,
it was like such a dark night of the soul, and everybody was like, "Oh, see the silver lining eventually." And as I, cried my eyes out, I couldn't see it. But then, yeah, a few months later, I'm like, "Thank God this happened." It feels much more, yeah, kind of grounded and, solid. So I'm really
yeah.
happy with it too.
I remember I called my first business Live Your Life on Purpose. This is before I started the networking organization, and an attorney for somebody got in touch with me and said they'd trademark that. And it's like, Live Your Life on Purpose. I mean, that's probably in a zillion books. But you can trademark that, it just seems
Yes.
like you should be able to trademark a name like Gentle.
Yeah, I know. It's so
But it all worked out for both of us. It really did.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, in your article, Sarah, you write about the evolution of the 7 Ps of marketing, and you're starting with passion, but you sort of flipped the script on the old 7 Ps. Any of us who took, I mean, I majored in business in college, so I took a couple of marketing classes, or if they've anybody who studied with a traditional marketing guru, if you will, they know about the traditional 7 Ps. Would you say what those are or were?
Yeah, yeah. So the traditional 7 Ps are pretty much very, in this context of transactional oriented. So they're very process oriented. They have the P like processes or physical evidence, or like very much this old language that when I was looking at them, I'm like, yeah, I guess that was smart back in the days, but it it just didn't work or didn't align with this new version of marketing that I wanted to bring out. And the other thing that I noticed is that these 7 Ps, they were separate circles, right? So
Mhm.
you have the separate Ps, and I was like, well, that does not make sense if I'm thinking about marketing from within and this being a holistic approach. Then don't these P's all need to align? Like they all need to be one. And so that's when I started to see them kind of transform and turn into this shape of the mandala that I'm using now with these new P's. So it really is a transition from the original piece came out in the 1960s, and it's kind of like, yeah, very businesslike. And now with this new updated version, it is more about first working on ourselves. We'll talk about the different P's, but first working on ourselves and then bringing that out, where the original piece was all about the out there.
Mhm.
There was no question, well, how does this apply to me as a solopreneur or us as a company? Does this align with our values or any of that? None of that. It was very transactional.
Yeah. I remember maybe it was the early 2000s when this whole thing around, 300-foot long emails, and every paragraph had a link here to go buy it, link here to go buy it. And it was like, and I just remember feeling so overwhelmed. And, we're getting all this messaging about you're supposed to do it this way. And it
Yeah.
just didn't feel right. So I'm so grateful for people like you who step out and go, oh, we can do this differently.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a little scary when you start I know it's scary because I was getting criticized for just the way I was doing it, doing the networking piece. But like, before we actually talk about the first P, I'd love to know what was the transition like for you, or the transformation? Was it fluid? Did you try some things and they didn't work and you took 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing? Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. You know, just like the book came out in early 2020, right? And before that, as I was researching this and going through my own transformation, so 2018, 2019, like you said, nobody was talking about consciousness, any of that kind of woo-woo that now, 5 years after COVID, 4 years after COVID, it's like that's a common thing that a lot of people are talking about. And there's at least 3 other communities that I know of today that talk about doing marketing differently. Back then, I didn't see anybody else. I'm sure they existed, but I was not aware of them. And
Yeah.
so it was very, very hard. I was alone in this questioning. And when I put out the book and tried to get on people's podcasts, right? So I was on like these marketing podcasts, and man, like it was man, because a lot of them were men, right? And so they kept questioning me and almost like shaming me. Like it felt really harsh because they kept asking about results and transactions and conversions and stats and numbers. They're like, how do you measure this, different to them, very woo-woo marketing?
Yeah.
And you have to know that I'm a Capricorn, so I'm very much down to earth and only look at things that work. And so I was like, well, but this works. This is the future. This is where we need to go. And yet, yeah, I was having a very hard time on these podcasts because they weren't having none of it. So it was difficult. And even for my own audience, we were so trained to always just look for solutions that are instant fixes, quick
Mhm.
fixes, that it was hard for people to transition and go, yeah, okay, but we're going to be kind and empathic and all of these nice things in our marketing, but how's that ever going to lead to sales? So it was difficult for people and for my own business. And I wrote that in the book. It's like there's going to be a transition, because if you have been doing the hard selling up till now, well, then obviously there's going to be a shift. And most likely the people that you have on, for example, your email list, they're not going to get it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
There's no more quick fixes that you're offering, because you're now getting into this place of integrity and not actually just wanting to sell something that you know is not going to work for people. So yeah, it's a transition.
Yeah. Quick story, gosh, probably 15 or so years ago, I was at an event, and it was, I think there were 5 of us who ran local networking organizations. It was a group of men and women, and I was on a panel, and the woman who was monitoring the panel was a member of my community, and we were taking Q&A, and a woman in the audience asked, what should I do with all the business cards that I take home from a networking meeting? And the moderator started laughing. She goes, I'm gonna let Ginny Robertson answer that question. And I said, if you're going home with that many business cards, I would just throw them away because you haven't actually made a genuine connection with anyone. And I could hear the men in the room, like, collectively, like, looked at me like I had lost my mind. And the women all breathed a sigh of relief. Because
Right.
it was just that difference that you're talking about. And
Yeah.
it's been interesting over the years to watch more men start to embrace the heart-centered, whatever we're doing, whether it's networking, marketing, accounting. I mean, all of it can be
Yeah.
done from a heart-centered basis.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
let's get into then this first of the 7 Ps. Now you're doing a series of articles, and every issue, which is every other month, y'all, you'll go over one of these, which I just love because you really explain it in such a great way. The first P is about passion. So what do you want to say about passion? Why does that matter?
Hmm. Yeah, I think many of us, when we enter a business, when we, first create our business, it may be circumstance-based business. So meaning, like, for example, my first business, I started because we moved to the US from Europe, and I put my kids, to kindergarten, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do now here in the US? And so I started my virtual assistant business back in the days. There was no, yes, I turned it a bit into a passionate thing because I was learning all these new things, but there was not really a big question of why am I doing this? Like, what kind of problem am I really solving? And as you know, Ginny, I work a lot with change makers. So like this big question of the why is super important, because that's the thing that will help us with our marketing, because we get stuck with, oh, we have to promote ourselves. If we always go back to the why and the passionate, why we are so passionate about the thing that we're doing, then we'll always unstuck ourselves, because we're like, okay, yeah, yes, that's why I'm doing it. And that's why I need to share this
Mhm.
message in this event, in this program. So that's the reason why it's so important. And I actually see right now, in this weird time that we're in, there's a lot of, especially female entrepreneurs, who have built a business maybe that was circumstance based, and maybe the kids grew up and they're like, oh, I'm going to start this real estate business. And yet now, since we are in these weird times, they're like not passionate about it anymore. Because
Mhm.
yes, it pays the bills, maybe, but it's like, is this all there is? Like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is this how I'm contributing to the world? So that's the reason why we start with that, so that, yeah, it helps us with our marketing, because people can feel the passion, right? If you're not passionate, and it's what happened to me with my LinkedIn business. I had a LinkedIn consulting business for 15 years. And eventually I'm like, this is not my calling. I'm not here to only do that. Not that there's, other people love doing that, but for me, it was like, this is not what I want to do. So yeah, that's why the passion, I think, is so key, that we start there.
And would you agree that the clearer we are on the passion and our why and I think we have to look at also what it's bringing to us. It's a very, we have to be selfish in this, I believe. And I think selfish is a really positive word when it's applied to
Mhm.
self, that we have to get something for ourselves in a big way. But also, I think we have to come to this acknowledgement that not everyone is a potential client.
Yeah,
It helps us narrow down who are we really speaking to, who needs to hear our message, rather than just throwing it out there, because the old marketing days is everybody wants what you have, right? And then
right,
market the
exactly.
same to everybody. And I think that's why so many of us got turned off by the type of marketing that was being kind of thrust at us once the internet came into play in such a big way.
Yeah.
So,
And you're bringing up the P of people, which is the third P,
mm,
right? But most marketing programs, they start with that P, but if it does not relate to the bigger why, your bigger why,
mhm,
then it's still kind of still an outward business where all you're wanting to do is get clients,
yeah,
right? But this, like you said, it's something selfish as well. You have to really enjoy it,
mhm,
as well. I don't even like the word business so much anymore. I talk about your life's work. So if
mm.
this is your life's work, you have to really, find it very, very interesting and be passionate about it.
I so agree, Sarah. And I love the story you told at the beginning about, this hippie, young little hippie girl who grew up in this community. And that's so important, because I remember really many years ago, sharing this idea that, if we're showing up fake in the world, especially with our business, then people are going to want the fake version of us. And that is
Mm,
not sustainable, especially
right.
once you start to like go deeper and discover who we really are and what we really want. And so we have to keep faking it. And
Yeah.
that is just challenging to do. And
So
so,
tiring. Yeah.
put your real self out there. There are people who want the real self. And it's also an example to women everywhere that, you can do this. We're all flawed. Let the flaws show, let the mistakes show, stop apologizing for everything, just do you. And I think that's so important. You want to say
Mm.
anything more about that? I want to get into your actionable tip next, but want to say anything
Yeah.
else?
No, no, yeah, I think you just said it. It's all about, people, there's all these being authentic is a bit of a buzzword. But what it really takes is doing that deep inner work to figure out who you are authentically. You can't just buy a $70 course to learn how to be authentic. You have to go inward and yeah, figure out, well, who am I really?
Yeah.
And then bring that forward. Mm,
That's why the why is first, because
yeah,
we can't discover, I don't believe we can discover our why for real unless we've done some of that deeper work that says, well, who wants the why? Who is
yeah,
this me? Who's the me that is wanting this? And that's a lifelong process, as you know.
right.
It's ongoing. I've read years ago that starting a business, being an entrepreneur, is the greatest personal growth journey you'll ever embark on. It isn't that true because
Yeah,
everything shows
so
up, all the
true.
demons, all the fears, all the insecurities, they all show up.
Yes,
And there are always people willing to point them out to us along the way. So you have to kind of build a little backbone along the way too. And the clearer I think we are on the why, the clearer we stand in it and we don't let people sway our
exactly. There's that
opinions or sway.
groundedness. You're like,
Exactly.
no, this is
Exactly.
why. So you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm right here. I'm centered. Yes.
That's how you were able to stand, just be
Yeah.
steadfast in the face of, well, tell me, show me your proof. Show me your proof,
Yeah,
Sarah.
exactly. Yeah.
When each article, you're also going to give what you call an actionable tip. And your tip is take a moment to reflect on your why. Why did you start your business? What impact do you want to make? And how does your passion show up in your marketing today? And I encourage anyone watching this, please take the time to do this. These are such great questions. And Sarah, I would love for you to take your business as an example and go through each of those three tips and tell us what the answers are for you.
Yeah. Tell me tell me them one
Okay.
at a time, I
Why
guess.
did you start your business? You called us that you've answered really all of these along the way, but just in a concise couple of sentences for each one.
Yeah.
What's your
And
big one?
as entrepreneurs, as you probably also went through different like
Oh,
different
yeah,
businesses almost, right? So I'm
yeah.
going to answer for this business right now.
Hmm.
So what I always say for this business is that the reason I started it is to bring more kindness and empathy to the business and marketing world. So that business can really be a lever of good and to contribute to change. So that's the answer to that one.
How do you feel when you say that out loud still? Does it still like make you go kind of, ooh?
Yeah, I feel like I'm actually contributing, even though I have a small business, right? It's not like I'm not measuring that in terms of money or yeah, any kind of like monetary things, but just saying that out loud and knowing that I'm doing my best to contribute to that feels like, yes, I'm doing what I can to contribute to that change.
And you're part of a bigger collective of
Exactly.
all of us who are together are doing that. So it doesn't matter how large it is, as long as we know we're impacting one person at a time.
Exactly.
And that's what really matters. The
Mm.
second question, what impact do you want to make?
Yeah, same thing. Like I really want to change the way we look at business. So right now I'm writing the third book, Business Like We're Human, and there my it's really a call to help people like us, small entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs, to look at business in a different way, to
Mhm.
give ourselves permission to completely forget all the crap we heard about what business has to look like and marketing and sales, and come up with a new way, like come up with a different way that feels more humane and human. So that's the kind of impact I'd like to make.
And what happens when more and more business owners, entrepreneurs take this approach? What do you think? You know, I always like to go, okay, and then what? And then what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what can happen?
Well, when I first started out this research about how to do marketing differently, the word that kept coming up was anxiety. Like there was such a huge level of anxiety for anybody who was in this online business world, uh, to have to do certain things, and to be able to survive. And yeah, everybody felt the level of anxiety. And so I feel like if we're doing business in a more humane way, then we don't feel that anxiety. We feel more inner peace. We feel more grounded. We feel like we're, we're just being human, and it all just, and then that has ripple effects, because if we then show up like that to our families and, in politics, and I mean, you can really change the
No,
world
I
like
mean,
that.
it just makes it was just the ripple effect is the best term, really, because it really
Yeah,
does ripple out. And
right.
it keeps us grounded, it keeps us on purpose, if you will. And yeah. So let's see. The third one was, how does your passion show up in your marketing today? So how are you marketing different? Let's take an email as an example. How are your
Mhm.
emails different now than they were when you were doing the more traditional type of marketing?
Yeah, I really just talk to, as if I was talking to you, right? Like I don't use marketing lingo anymore. Anything that I was taught, oh, this is how you get more clicks, or this is how you have to get the title right, or all of this. I just feel like if people sense the energy and see the value of the things that I'm offering, then they're the right people. And so, yes, there's still going to be, something that for sale in some of the emails, because that's what we do. But it is more a conversation rather than a sales pitch. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing I would say is, like, I really, the main thing that doesn't work with marketing is that there's always a hidden agenda. Like there's always stuff that is not said, and we're taking people kind of like for stupid.
Mm-hmm. I love
And
that.
so I'm really explaining everything. Like, a simple example is if I'm sharing a summit that I'm going to be a speaker on. Well, I'm going to share whether I'm going to make a commission from the sales of the summit, or whether, how many people there's going to be. Like everything, I think, needs to be explained so that there's this level of trust that can be built. I think the main problem with the what marketing has done, the pushy marketing has done, is we've lost the trust of our people, because we disempowered them. We looked at them just as like walking wallets instead of human beings. And so we need to gain that power, that trust back.
Yeah. And I think you've touched on something else here, that it's okay to make money, because some people, that's why I think some people wanted to hide it, because it felt yucky, that it's okay. Yes, I'm going to make money on this. I'm bringing you an opportunity. You
Right,
know, I
exactly.
have knowledge and all those things. It's okay.
Yeah,
And so that's another thing I think we as women especially need to embrace more. If you believe in what you're selling, and if you believe in how you're selling it, then it's easy, I think, it becomes easier to ask for the money.
right.
You agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Yes. I think we can do it in a humane way, and
Yeah.
just make people understand that that's kind of the other thing that I feel is broken in this online world, is that the thought that everything needs to be free just because it's online. We're not on a payroll. Like if I'm creating, webinars and then send out an email with replays and all, I'm not getting paid.
Mhm.
And so we need to kind of start to teach people that there's a value in all the things that we're providing. And sometimes, yes, I'm willing to give it for free, but other times I want to be paid. And even if that's just, $20, $50, but we've trained people to think that everything is free just because it's online. And the
Mhm.
people who have trained us are the people who are making tons of money already. And so
Yeah.
it's not fair to all the small entrepreneurs who then feel like, oh, they have to work day and night because it's expected that everything is free,
Mhm.
which is not right.
Right, it's a
Yeah.
great point. Thank you. Well, to those of you watching, Sarah says a lot more in her article. So be sure you click on the link in the text of this video to On Purpose Woman magazine. Check that out and be sure to check out future issues where Sarah will go over each of these 7 Ps. So Sarah, how can our viewers find out more about you?
Well, you can come to my website, humane.marketing. And I also have a one-page marketing plan that goes over these articles as well. So if you want to come on to my email list because you want more, then that's at humane.marketing/one page, the number 1 and the word page. I also have a podcast called Humane Marketing and books. So yeah, just look me up and see what resonates.
Okay, and we have links as soon as we finish this broadcast, there will be links in the text of the video for you to check out what Sarah's up to out there. So anything coming up specifically you want to tell us about?
Recently I'm working on a new framework that has been developed by some researchers that is a response to the Sustainable Development Goals that has been brought forward by the UN. And this new research is called the Inner Development Goals. And I'm just really passionate about this idea of having to work on ourselves first so that we can then reach, any kind of outer goals. And so that's really my hope that's what I'm bringing with marketing is this inside out. It's like, well, if we are more compassionate, empathic, and resilient human beings, then automatically there's more empathy in our marketing because we feel good, we feel peaceful. So yeah, that inner work is so important.
I look forward to hearing more about that because, we're also growing leaders, and if we can catch younger people as they develop to actually start with that process, imagine how they can lead their local government, their state government, their country, their world, and come from that place. And yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Another time that
We can
that's
have many
exciting.
of those, Ginny.
Yes, we could, couldn't we? Okay, let's see. I'd love for you to just leave us with the final thought.
Final thought. The final thought has to do with networking because as I was talking about marketing like we're human and business like we're human, as in these online networking events, and one person was actually putting in the chat, this feels like networking like we're human. So I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what Ginny does, right? It's like we need to really apply this tagline of like we're human to all of the things that have to do somehow with business, because if we focus on the being human first, then the business and sales and marketing just flows from there, and it feels organic and natural. So
Sure does. Thank you for that. And,
yeah.
I have shied away. I did change the name from On Purpose Networking for Women to the On Purpose Woman Community because I realized that's not all we do.
Yeah.
We built community. And then when the pandemic hit and I was able to go on Zoom and be, you're in Switzerland and you've
Yeah.
spoken for my group and, became the On Purpose Woman Global Community. So, I want to add this real quick because I think it ties what we've been talking about together. I remember a number of years ago, a woman who was a paid member of the community, she'd been there for a year and it was up time for her to renew. And she emailed me and said, I'm not going to renew because I haven't gotten any business. And when I looked at some records, and this was all in-person meetings at the time, I saw where she'd been to 2 or 3 meetings in the entire year. But what hit me is she was expecting to get business. That was her whole purpose to join. And
Yeah.
the word networking kind of sets that up. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
it
going to go
does.
network because that's the way it was set up initially. And
Mhm.
that's not all that we're about. Yeah, we do business with each other. Yeah, you can get business for sure. But that's not the intent. If you go in with that intention, people feel it and it feels yucky and it feels like there's a hidden agenda and all of that. And so that started to have me thinking again about, and I really appreciate that that's where she was coming from because, she really wasn't an ideal fit for the community
No.
because we
Yeah.
weren't operating, she wanted the evidence in numbers, you
Yeah,
know.
she wanted the return on investment
Return on
on everything.
investment when there was also, you can't measure return on self-worth, return on business acumen, return on learning to talk about yourself in a really great way. Those are all things that we need to be measuring as well, which you also, you share how for people, how they can do that with more. I love the term ease and grace, just in this, and that's a huge benefit that you cannot quantify.
Mm,
you know,
exactly.
it's actually a feature, not a benefit. I like to get sometimes those two get a little skewed. But Sarah, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I'm so happy I met you, so happy that Emily connected us. And thank you for sharing your brilliance and your so needed perspective. I appreciate you and the important work you're putting out there into the world.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for having me and for our lovely conversations.
Yes, we'll do it again next issue. Okay.
Sounds good.
And I want to thank anyone who's watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Women Global Community and magazine, please click on the links in this video. And for more interviews with amazing women who are living their lives on purpose and making their unique impact, check out our YouTube channel. And that link is also in the text of this video. Thanks again for watching.